Okay, here they are up on Mars, and they're all gathering around the monitors watching. Here's what happened.
Looking around, we're taking pictures, and we see the ground covered, literally covered with these little spherical grains, and this is really bizarre.
The Martian
Okay, you see those little balls?
surface is covered in small spherical rocks.
Okay, what could those possibly be? Well, I understand what they are. That is the ball clay that is found in the interstitium layer of flesh. It's just below the kaolin clays, which are the fine clays of your skin, and just below that sits the fleshy red clays and the balls and the straps that attach. And these are the tiny ones, but Mars has some bigger ones. We're going to take a look at that right now. Now, this is the blueberries they're showing from Mars, and that's supposedly Mars, and these are the blueberries, and that is the skin underneath. That is what they call a basement layer of skin. This was embedded in the kaolin clays and the ball clays. That's exactly what they call it, the ball clays. I'll read this to you. It's going to blow your mind. Because the ball clays are also loaded with kaolin, which is the surface skin, and they're also loaded with silicon, which is the abrasive part of your skin. It's absolutely unbelievable. The chemistry, the anatomy, every single thing is there. It's just so big that they can't open their eyes big enough. You see that? That's the same thing right here on Earth. That's the skin underneath. These are the ball clays. And I think I know what those structures are back there. I'm not going to make any statements right at the moment, but all of this is biology. All right? And that right there is the interstitium. The mucosa is the skin. The mucosa is always the protective layer. I've been talking about it, that protects you from everything else. And in the skin is a lot of silicon. Very tough stuff. It turns into quartz. Then below that is the fleshy stuff, the ferrous oxide, red ferrous oxide, the hematite, little balls, and all these little straps. And then these fluid-filled areas, that gives your body plasticity. All right? And this here is those hematite balls. That's why they're a different color. They're not the same color as the straps. The straps are flexible, and they erode. And they get pretty big. And actually, those aren't even big. I mean, these balls get absolutely enormous. And when you know where they are, you will absolutely flip out. And of course, these are the things back on Mars again. Now, so I think I've shown a pretty good array of pictures that back up what I'm saying. Now I'm going to show you the anatomy and a couple other things to support this. And then I guess we'll probably call it quits. Bonjour, mes amis, it's Roger. Mudfossil University today. Who doesn't love biology? Everyone does, yes. Now, what are we looking at? Well, what do you think it is? All right, well, I'll tell you what it is. That's a tendon mat. Right, you see that big flap of fiber? That's really tough as hell fiber. And you see these straps here? Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. They're all over this thing. And that allows that tendon, these balls should be locked in here. That's pulled out, and that guy is in serious pain. Those are very painful. That strap goes through that Chinese finger trap, they call it, down and locks in this basement layer. That allows the tendon to glide back and forth with these straps. Now, what does that do for you? That tendon attaches to muscles, bones. It's a leverage point. And you pull against it. So you want your arms over, you pull it up like this, you know, that type of thing. So I want you to remember this point right here. You see these? You see how flat this plate is? And these little bumps here. What if that broke right there? What do you think you'd see if it broke right there? And what do you think you'd see if it broke right there and that strap continued on to that ball? What do you think you'd see then? Let's see if we can find anything like that around the world. But the first thing I'm going to do is show you the full way, how many straps there are and how many balls there are, because you just will not understand or believe it. Alright, the thing to take away here is that there is a bunch of different styles of these ball emplacements, whether they go into fleshy tissues or whether they go into bone or that. Then there's also ligaments versus tendons, right? You don't have to know any of that stuff. All you have to know is that these balls exist in voluminous quantities, huge amounts, and they are everywhere on Earth. And they are attached to these little straps. Those little straps are what pulls. This anchors, the straps pull, and they're not very flexible. Well, they're flexible, but they're not stretchy. They have a less than about a 3%, 2% stretch maximum. That's what gives you the real power in your step and the pull and the strength to really do absolutely incredible things with the human body. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, I've spoken of this many times. We are made in layers. You see these little things? Nobody carved that. That is literally what is the tendon mat is made out of, and that is these bumps. Remember I said look at that spot, don't forget. You see right in there? You see right in that little bump there? That is biology. That was fed with the fluids of life. And it's ran up over into another spot with a ball. They've obviously sliced these. And they had equipment to do this. I've shown that many, many, many times. So it's not something that should be missed, really. But it's just being missed. Because it's more than people can understand. But this is the way the human body is made, in little bitty blocks and layers. It's just, I'll show you. There's layers this way and there's layers this way. That's muscle fibers. You see that? That's our tissue. That's what we're made like. You know, it's chopped and broken off, but you can see they are little tiny bits and pieces. And the creatures were so enormous back long ago that a dinosaur that we think of as enormous could have fit on one of those little tiny blocks. That's how big they were. They were miles and miles tall. All right? And I'm going to show you what, I mean, it's all biology. Everything is biology. And it's gigantic biology, and the Earth is biology, and so is Mars. These are the Mars blueberries that they're talking about. And I'm going to tell you what they are right now. Those are the anchor balls inside the kaolin plasticky clays. They call it ball clays, literally. And there's kaolin clays in here and red clays in here, and above that is the skin, which has a lot of silicon. And that is exactly what the chemistry is. Now, Mars is a lot different than Earth. It's just gently abraded. You see these balls? They will not abrade because they are made out of a much heavier material than the straps that attach to them. The straps have been eroded here because it's sticking up and it's been abraded. These are the valleys, and this skin was stretched. That is skin. Skin. That is what they call interstitium, and these little balls and straps hold each other, and this skin is tight like this, and that skin is pulled apart. Now, you know how it works. You do it on your own body, and they will come back together. It's how you can flex, and they call that ball clay, and that is on the face of Mars. They called it the Mars Morse code. They think somebody carved that in there for some kind of ritual or something. I don't know what they think anymore. This is on Mars too, and that's the Mars crab, they call it, because it's got all these legs sticking out. Ooh, what is that all about? Well, here's what it's all about. This is skin. Those are the layers of, not skin necessarily, these are the layers of probably flesh. All right, you see all the red blood running out of it, it's all powdered up. Now that's what happens to red blood. The dark black blood does not powder up like the red. Now, that is a vein which has no legs on it, and that is an artery, and that is the red blood of the artery, and these spikes are the arterial vessels that go into the blood, bring the blood into the tissues that surround it. And they flow through these tissues, and then they are returned into the vein at some point. Now, that's what all this is, and that's on Mars, and it's called the Mars crab. So I don't know if that's from a gigantic creature or it's from Mars itself. Because I would think Mars was alive just like Earth is alive, and it's alive now, but it's in serious trouble. A lot of the stone balls that are in skin, which is an interstitium, are like this. There's other stone balls that have patterns within them, and they have a solid structure, and they're not just like this. These are the interstitium balls, and these are the hematite balls. See that? These are all those little hematite balls. And at one time, that was a creature that died. I'm just telling you that's a fact. In the Great Flood, and at some point, all of this skin eroded off and left the balls, just exactly like that clusters of balls that they showed up on Mars. Now, above this was kaolin fleshy clays. And then above that was the layer of skin, the top layer of skin, which turns into mica, in which all of these things are found. Skin is layers of skin and ends up being mica. The areolar tissue underneath turns into the ball clays and the red plasticky clays, and I'm going to read you the details on it. It's not even something that's unknown. It's just that they can't open their eyes to see this in its entirety. That is the basement layer of skin right under this. And you can see the patterns of skin if you look close under them. It's anatomically undeniable. All right, those are those balls, and they're hematite, and they had little straps coming off them, all of them, every single one of them. And of course, they're bigger or smaller. Depends where it is in the body, where you collected it, and how big the creature was that had them. And they say that all these are concretions. They're not concretions. They are tendon enthesis balls. And they're everywhere. This is skin. That's in the skin. Lily Lavender sent me this. And that is identical to Iapetus, which is Saturn's moon. It has the holes that attach, just like that. I'll show you another one that's easier to see. But they come in and they attach with the straps, and that's the ball. Alright, that's Iapetus. That is Saturn's moon. And those are the two tendon attachment spots that service it with arterial blood and return vein blood. And that is the equatorial ridge, which is the same as you see in the tendon balls in many places here on Earth. Alright, that's Saturn's moon, Iapetus, and that is the equatorial ridge, and that is, these tendon balls crack right there and they fall in two pieces, like splitting an egg in half. Alright, there's a giant tendon ball. You see that crack right there? It's the exact same thing. That is where the stalk comes up and they erode, because that is much stronger. That white is kaolin clay. That was skin. Alright, at one time this whole field that you see was completely covered with skin. There's ball clays. Now it is the field that they grow things in. That ball is eroded in half, obviously you see it, and those are the two attachment points, just like Iapetus. Only Iapetus happens to be out hanging around Saturn. Alright, I've been talking about gigantic hairs, gigantic skin, gigantic everything, and what do you think those are? I'm going to tell you what, they're gigantic hairs, and the guy didn't shave. Well, maybe he shaved, because you wouldn't even know those were there on a guy that size. If you want to go down underneath his skin, there you are. And what do we have here? We have those hairs right up there. They go to the top of this unshaven guy's face. And there's your black, and there's your red. Well, what is black and red, Roger? Well, black is your vein blood, which has already expended its O2, and red is the replacement blood, reinforcements on the way, and that is the particulated blood. Red blood turns into ochre and mud and all that stuff. The black blood, a little different. That turns into the hard stuff. That turns into iron. The black types of iron. I got one right here. See that? Oops. It's a little lung. And it turned into iron. Anyway, that's what happens to the different types of blood. And that is skin. And that is the kaolin clay. That is the hairs. That's from a giant creature. And I don't think it's a human, because I don't see any sweat glands. And I don't think it's a mammalian, because mammalians all have sweat glands, and I do not see them. So I don't know what it is. All right, this is the hairs. And guess what? We're standing inside the guy's face, looking out, and all over the other side is the same hairs. This is no little puppy. This, whatever it was extremely large. And that is the pattern of hairs. Now, somebody that really knew hair, and I've looked into all the different patterns, and there is a million of them. Somebody might recognize what kind of creature that is. I don't know. And maybe if you took samples from deep inside those coils, you would get chemistry that could enlighten this whole investigation here, because that is animal remains. That's all. I'm sorry. That's what it is. All right, look at this. This is one of these gigantic hairs that people get. You got to pull them out with the tweezers. And there's the hair in the background, a normal one. I don't know. That's a gigantic hair, but it's just sticking up there all by itself. So it's clearly has more structure than the other ones. Why? It's got to be one of these type of hairs. Everybody gets them that are just a little nastier than the rest of them. Okay, this is human hair, and that is human skin, and that is kaolinite clay. And when this hardens up into sheets, it will eventually turn into mica. And every single color there is represented in mica of the skin colors. And they are blood skin layers. They crystallize in these flat layers. And I've shown how separated our body parts are. And we are built in layers, and I mean tiniest little layers. Very, very strange, but quite true. Well, this shows it pretty good. This is a tendon ball. It's eroded at the top. It was round at one time. And these are like the stalks that enter into it, the strap part. And it's just eroded, and around that was skin. The skin part erodes really quick, and the plasticky clays. And the stalks erode. You see, it's a totally different material. The same thing here, same thing. They're all over the place. That's what that was skin at one time. All right, that's the interstitium. These are the balls in the strappy areas, and this is what they call the collagen bundles. Those are the straps, and then the balls. These are the areolar tissue where everything plasticky clays can move. There's your what they call a mucosa, which is the skin, and in the skin, it's dense with silicon, SiO2, which ends up being quartz. And that's it's in this same stuff. It's quartz, it's kaolin clays, which is the skin clay. I mean the skin and the upper flesh clays, and then you go into the ball clays and the red clays. And then below that, of course, you go into what they call the marl, which would be the organs and everything. It's all kinds of different materials and metals and things. And then you get into the limestone, which is the structure of the body, tendons and so forth. Now, with all I've shown you, this should be just like water rolling over a duck. Ball clays are kaolinic sedimentary clays. Kaolinic is skin. It's the skin and the clay of your upper flesh. Sedimentary clays, they rubbed off. Commonly consists of 28 to 80% kaolinite, which is what our skin is. 10 to 25% mica, which, well, that's actually, this mica is the layers of skin. Kaolinite is the fleshy ball clay. Well, it's the clay, and then inside the clay is the balls. Now, you got quartz, which is 6 to 65% quartz. That is your SiO2, silicon dioxide, that's on your skin to make you tough as hell against the world. Now, localized seams in the same deposit have variations in composition. Yes, because your body varies in composition. And there's like grip skin, and then there's fine skin, there's facial skin, there's muscular skin, including the quantity and of the major minerals. Yes, absolutely. 100%. In your fingertips and your feet, it's like a ton of silicon, and not quite so much of the plasticky clays. Now, accessory minerals and carbonaceous minerals such as lignite, all those things vary in quantities depending upon what part of the body is. They are fine-grained and plastic in nature. Yes, your body moves around. Now, unlike most earthenware clays, produce a fine quality white-colored pottery body when fired, which is the key to their popularity with potters. This was white people. I'm telling you, every color of human people is represented in kaolin clays. They can make it out of brown and gray and all of that stuff. The white gives them purity so they can see through it. No. It says ball clays are relatively scarce deposits due to a combination of geological factors. Not really. Needed for the formation and preservation. Well, there is, yes, that's true. They are mined in parts of the eastern United States and from 3 sites in Devon and Dorset in southwest England. This is where they make the bone china, they call it. You can see right through it. My grandmother was from Ireland. She used to have these, it was just absolutely thin as paper. You see right through it. And I guess they made them right in that area. There's some huge deposits in that area. And it talks about the rheological stability, which is how strong it is as they mold it, and it has some good qualities there. The name ball clay is believed to derive from the time when the clay was mined by hand, and they cut it. During transport, the corners of cubes became rounded off, leaving balls hanging off. The ceramic use of ball clays in Britain dates back at least in Roman era. So they were calling it ball clays back then. So they knew more than we know. Because they just discovered this, you know. This is, ball clays are interstitium. They just found this interstitium. Wait, do you see this? By the way, before we go to interstitium, I just want you to know, I've been doing it on granite. That is not natural stone. Nobody carved that. That is not a natural stone. That was poured exactly like they pour concrete. All these little particles are homogeneous from ground up, wet flesh. They ground it up, and then they extracted the metals, and then they made heads and all kinds of statuaries and sarcophagus and all that stuff. They didn't go down the Nile and carry these things up the Nile. They ground them up on site. So let's go on past that.